Let me start off by just asking you, you're planning to increase your capital this year in order to meet a 9% core Tier 1 capital requirement by the Bank of Portugal. How do you plan to meet the 10% core Tier 1 capital ratio required by the end of 2012?
Good morning, thank you for the invitation. We will achieve the target of the 9% until the year end. To go to the 9 towards the 10%, we plan to achieve it before the year end of 2012, and we intended to do by some divesting, some sale of credit that will diminish risk-weighted assets, and also by focus more in terms of our business, and also recurring to some liability management, debt to capital, as we have done recently. So we have several levers to achieve the 10% core. We are committed to do that, and we will achieve it before the end of 2012.
Can you tell us how much you sold and how much in terms of different regions and projects as well?
In terms of the sales of credit, we have sold 300 million of credit. So we are doing other consultations towards other credit portfolios, but it's mainly European credits.
What else do you plan to sell then to reach the higher core Tier 1 ratio for 2012?
As I told you, we will pursue an operation of liability management, and also we will analyze again our international operations. So it's by internal means that we will generate the core Tier 1 of the 10% in 2012.
How confident are you that you'll be able to reach that without accessing the 12 billion euros of funding set aside in the EU rescue package for Portugal?
If there are, in the actual circumstances, we are confident because we have, as I mentioned, the several levers to go there. So we don't see a need to go for the recapitalization fund. So that is not in our projects.
Is 12 billion euros a reasonable amount? Is that about what Portuguese banks need?
Sorry, your first words.
Is 12 billion euros a sufficient amount to recapitalize Portuguese banks?
I think the line that is putting available to Portuguese banks, to me it seems a very reasonable number. So the other banks also told they don't expect to go to that facility. So I think it is very positive that the facility for recapitalization exists, but the major Portuguese banks have already told that they don't think to take advantage of that. So I think the amount is reasonable.
Banco Espírito Santo has issued bonds with a state guarantee. Is that an alternative way to try and raise capital? Is that something you're thinking about?
Espírito Santo and Caixa Geral de Depósitos told that they would go to ask the guarantee of the state to issue debt. So it's a question of tapping the liquidity markets and have additional funds, even to discount in the ECB if needed, then more capital matters. So I think in terms of liquidity, the amount of guarantees that the state has put available to the banks, we expect that sometimes several banks will utilize it. Millennium BCP will announce his position in the next days.
So you think it's a possibility you will issue bonds with state guarantees?
Yes, I think it's a possibility.
Will that
I
be
mentioned
for...
2 days ago. I mentioned 2 days ago that we are studying that possibility, and so we will take a formal decision in the following days.
When do you think you might come to a decision about that?
I think in the next days, couple of days.
Okay. When do you think you will be able to significantly reduce your reliance on ECB funding?
I think the reliance on the ECB funding will diminish gradually. I don't think it is possible to decrease it in just a month or a year. I think it also depends of the repo markets and the functioning of that market, and that market is somehow volatile, but the market is there, and we will try to be active in that market. And also in terms of what will be our deleverage. We have a plan to deleverage, and of course if we deleverage and if we reduce credit, we will reduce at the same time our funding with the ECB.
Given that you do need to deleverage and to rebuild your balance sheets, are you going to maintain your exposure to Portuguese government debt?
Our exposure to Portuguese government debt will, half of it is treasury bills. So until February next month, it will be strongly reduced. So we will have treasury bills that will mature, and we don't intend to buy more Portuguese public debt. So I think it will be a natural reduction over this year.
How much do you think you will reduce your exposure to Portuguese government debt by?
I think we should reduce until between 1 billion, 2 billion euros.
How much of a total holding is that for you in terms of your portfolio?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sure.
There was someone passing.
No worries. What percentage is that of your total holdings of Portuguese government debt?
We have around, I would say, 6% of our assets in Portuguese public debt, so it's a reasonable figure. 7%. So that's the amount that we have in our balance sheet.
Okay. So cutting it by 1 to 2 billion euros is equal to what percent?
It will go to around 4%, I would say.
Okay.
4 to 5%.
Okay. As you've already talked about, liquidity is a key challenge for you. How much does your loan to deposit ratio need to come down by before you can access markets again?
I think to tap the markets, it will be a question of how we will go to tap the market. We think to tap the market, the appropriate way will be with the securitization of mortgage, so with a lower risk. We think, of course, it will depend on our capital ratios that for the next year should be the 10%, and with this year the 9%, and with a clear vision on what will be our deleverage during this period, and how much will be the target of our transformation ratio.
I've got one killer.
We are negotiating with the central bank the target of the transformation ratio, so what will be the target of loans to deposits, and I think this will depend from us, but of course it also our possibility to tap the market also will depend of the Portuguese economic environment and how the market see the evolution in terms of fiscal consolidation. So one part depends on the bank, the other part of course is dependent on the country and their macro evolution.
Okay. On that very final note, there's a lot of talk about reprofiling Greek debt. If that happens, is that an issue for you, and will Portuguese debt follow suit?
I think we should expect for the report on the evolution of the measures that the Greek government had adopted, that will be announced on the 20th June, and that time to see what are the advances that the Greek government have achieved, and what will be the needs and the additional support the European Union must give, because this is not only an economic issue, I think it's also a political issue. So it have a global dimension and not just a Greek dimension.
Will you be affected?
Regarding, sorry?
Will you be affected?
I think okay. The markets will always look who will be the next. But what I think is the indebtedness of the country, of the Greek and the Portuguese countries are very different. So I think, of course, the market should interpret some signs from it, but I think the situations are very different, and I think a restructuring of the Greek public debt should be avoided. The Prime Minister of Greece have told that to the market last week, and if it is on the table as a last resort solution, I think it should be made on a voluntary basis. So, but I think we should expect what are the results of the next, will be announced next month.
Okay, brilliant. Mr. Macedo, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us today.
Thank you.